Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank everyone for attendance, and if you need to reflect the role of the various trustees, the staff will move on to item 3. Entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from 12/6 village board and file the 10/11 board public works, 10/27 police and fire commission, 11/9 public safety committee, 11/10 architecture review board, 11/15 finance committee meeting minutes as presented.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. As always, comments, questions, clarifications on the minutes. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Move on to item 4. Anybody in the audience wishing to be heard on a non-agenda item? Non-agenda item. Move on to item 5. Any information has been presented in the normal fashion. Move on to item 6, resolutions, ordinance, action items. Item 8, the pre-annexation agreement relating to the public improvements to Stonewall Farm subdivision. Jesse?
Sure. This has been an ongoing negotiation with the development team to reach a point. We do have one minor tweak from the last meeting in which we presented a draft that is on your dais this evening with regards to language within the agreement. That said, we believe we are at a point of coming to terms with regards to a pre-annexation agreement and then the associated ordinances that would annex the property and rezone the property intended to be developed as a residential subdivision to be known as Stonewall Farms.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Tillman is in the audience. Any questions or concerns on the pre-annexation agreement?
No, we finally got it today.
Okay, I'll open this up to the village board for any comments, questions they may have on the pre-annexation agreement.
I have a question. So we got this draft on a desk here, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yep, so there's just a couple edits highlighted on page 3 and page 4 that are slightly different
Okay.
than what you had in your packet. That's the only thing
Oh,
that's
okay,
changed.
all right. And these are the only two things that are different?
Correct.
If I can add just a few highlights, this development in particular has a lot of offsite implications, especially on the sanitary sewer side. This current property is further west than any of our immediate sanitary sewer. At the moment, it's a pretty large development, so there are quite a number of projects that will be coming up in a number of years as this project moves forward to update lifts and associated items in the 9th Avenue lift station that's at 9th and Mole Creek. There are upgrades that will be needed at the 11th Avenue lift station that is just south of Hickory Street. And then there are at least a couple thousand feet of sanitary sewer pipe throughout the village, going all the way down towards the wastewater treatment plant that will have to be replaced, either due to the fact that they're too small and they can't handle the flows from this development, or that they're laid fairly flat and do not have enough pitch to them to keep things moving with the additional flows. So just wanted to point out that it's all, worked out, but there will be additional offsite costs, coming through in the coming years related to this.
Tom?
And Director Thomas, just so the board knows, the village will be responsible for a large portion of those costs.
Right.
Correct.
And that was highlighted here.
Some of it was already in there, the percentages that you saw, there's 20 and 24% that in the long run will be covered by this development, but the other portion will be the responsibility of the village at this point.
But oversizing sanitary sewers and our costs, that's common practice.
Yeah, and good planning, right? To be prepared for future lands in that area.
All right, Tom, you have a question or comment?
I just had a question regarding service areas for 9th Avenue lift station, 11th Avenue lift station. So you're talking about upgrades in the future to those to provide benefit to the developer. Those lift stations, mean, Ninth Avenue especially, that's not that old. We changed the service area.
It's not that old. That lift station was built large enough to accommodate this area, so it was planned, but only 2 pumps went in. It has room in there for 3, but only 2 were put in just to service the area that they needed to service for the last 10 years or so that it's been in service. By the time about half of this development or the southern half gets on board, we will need to upsize those 2 pumps as well as add a 3rd.
Are you talking the same types of upgrades or improvements to the 11th Avenue?
11th Avenue wasn't built, obviously to accommodate more because it is an older station, so there will be further updates there.
And the developer is fine with that?
But on that 11th Avenue, I thought we were going top. I thought that was just redone, 12, 15 years ago, and it was upsized huge.
It's pretty huge. I don't know, other than pump replacement, which is normal wear and tear, that would have to be done, but that's not a developer expense. That's something that utility addresses that on an as-needed basis.
Right, if pumps need to be replaced, then we will have to factor that in at the time, but if they need to be upsized or additional pumps added.
Were you able to find any information, design information on the area and future area that will be benefited and served by the 11th Avenue lift station?
I do believe we had all the plans and all the information from 11th Avenue that was used in the current study that we did. Yes.
And then has that been shared with the developer?
The study, yes.
I had is the golf course. I can't believe that's not going to come into the business. Why is that not on the plan? I mean, you're a stone's throw away from the Ninth Avenue lift station. I don't understand that. That's an 80-acre parcel there that why that's not on the plan, I don't understand.
In terms of additional service area?
Correct.
Our feedback that we received as far as not being in the service area is there's no inclination whatsoever of any sort of a time frame for that coming into the village and being built out. All inclination is showing that they are a healthy business and they're going to stay as such for the reasonable foreseeable future. So that therefore it was not part of the development area.
Well, I would differ with that because it's part of the future sanitary sewer service area approved by sewer. And they don't take a look. I mean, it's
Right.
Anything can happen.
Sure.
Now, maybe you're right, and in assuming it's not going to happen in
Sure.
In the next 10, 15, 20 years, who knows? But still part of our future service area.
But that should be addressed in the future.
Yeah.
Doing the next phases, which we talked about, we're going to be looking back at that stuff. Make sure we think this, figure that out.
What is the average length of a lift station? Like, can you gauge that? Like, how long does it sustain?
I don't know how long the pumps are designed for.
I guess I'm used to like 20, 25 years if they're maintained.
Pumps are typically designed and good for service life of 15 years.
Jesse, this is identified as a draft. What kind of action are you looking for?
We are looking for approval of the pre-annexation agreement related to the public improvements in Stonewall Farms.
Identified as draft. This is in fact final.
Correct. It is the final draft that is before the board. Yep.
Other comments, questions?
Yeah. I'm not sure if I asked this question before, and I apologize if you already answered it for me, Amber. Quite a well at the Holloway homestead. And there's connection somewhere here. It says within 18 months after approval of the phase 1 final plat.
12 months.
Okay. And that private well is going to be abandoned. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Second, I'll entertain a motion to approve the pre-annexation agreement with public improvements and fund subdivision of village of Grafton, Kentucky County, Wisconsin.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion second, final comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Let's move on to item And
These ordinances were not reprinted for this packet as nothing changed with them from the previous meeting.
so we should just pull them out of our packet. What you're saying?
Yes, please. What these ordinances do are to actually enact the annexation, but then also to rezone those parcels into village zoning districts. So it is basically the sequence of events: the pre-annexation agreement, the ordinance to complete said annexation, and then the ordinance to rezone those properties into, again, particular village zoning districts.
For my copy. Do you have a copy of it? I would like to just take everybody's time looking for my copy of it. Or just copy of it.
The ordinance.
Yeah,
I
the
have
action items.
the ordinance exhibit, which identifies it's basically just a map of where the different zoning districts are going to be applied. So basically, the farmstead will be assigned the single family 3. The rest of the single family subdivision will be assigned the single family 4 zoning district. The condo area with the duplexes and fourplexes and the community center will be assigned the planned unit development zoning district, and then the small area of parkland, the 1.5 acres, would be assigned park and rec. And just so the board understands, while the zoning will be assigned tonight, the village board will see all of this come back with the final plats for each phase of the development. So zoning is assigned tonight, and then the final plats will come to plan commission and then to village board. I can share this with the board if anyone would like to see it. Both of the ordinances are our standard annexation and rezoning ordinances that outlines the size of the annexation and the areas to be zoned, the titles of them, and the date of plan commission recommendation.
All right, well, we could come out of plan commission, so the 2 items are, we can take them together as separate. Item 1 is the ordinance to rezone parcels,
No, one is the annexation.
or ordinance to the annexation of 4912 Highway 60, and the item 2 is ordinance to rezone 4912 Highway 60, and then those parcels are identified. So we should take them separate. So item 1 is a motion to approve the ordinance on the annexation of 4912 Highway 60 and those parcels that are listed in the town of Cedarburg.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we'll take a motion and we'll take a second here. Motion and second, comments, questions on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And item 2 is the motion to rezone 4920 Highway 60 to the zoning classifications that are listed.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Motion second, comments, questions on that item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Let's move on to item C. Item C is a resolution requesting inclusion of additional conditions on a town of Grafton conditional use permit for a concrete batch plant.
We were notified by the town of Grafton that they received a conditional use permit application from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation as part of their I-43 improvement project. The permit application is to establish a concrete batch plant near the intersection on the vacant property near the intersection of Arrowhead and Port Washington Road. The Village of Grafton does have extraterritorial review rights there as an objecting body or objecting agency, excuse me. So that said, we are, instead of just simply sending a letter or an email correspondence to the township. We are before the village board this evening, requesting a resolution to really formalize a couple of concerns that we have and making a formal request of the town to place two conditions upon the permit, should it be issued. One of those being that all of the traffic related to this development shall only travel on county and state roads. We do not want heavy construction traffic on any village streets. We have no reason to believe they would get to that point, but nonetheless, if we can have a written condition avoiding it, we would like to have that in place. The second condition, we are requesting of the town to add to this permit that any damage done from trucking on State Highway 60 will be the responsibility of the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to repair said damage. Under our connecting highways permit, damage to State Highway 60 does fall to the village under normal circumstances. So that said, if their heavy construction traffic damages State Highway 60, we want them to fix it. We don't want them falling back on the connecting highways agreement and putting us on the hook for it. So that is the request we want to make to the town, but again, in a very formal manner, which is why the resolution is before the village board this evening.
Do you know if the county is going to do the same thing for Portland?
That I do not know. I can check on it.
Makes sense to at least ask. Any questions on this item?
Jesse, is this new area taking the place of the previous spot, which was on the east side of the highway?
That I don't know. I think it may be.
And the town
Yeah.
didn't like that spot right there?
Yeah, I think it may be. I just did a cursory review of the information we received from the town clerk and quickly spoke with Director Wolf and Director Thomas about the concerns we would have and hence the resolution. But I believe it does replace that location.
Okay, and how can we measure the amount of damage that's done? Like, do we do a before and after to our roads? Is that, how are we
I
gonna?
think we can never do an inspection further than what we already do for our, our annual inspection of the roads and rating of them. So we have a rating and we obviously know if it deteriorates further than that. I will say that the documents that were provided to the town did say that the contractor plans on sending all of their traffic north to 32 and B and using that exit and not using Highway 60, but we all know, that could be a great plan and not everyone will listen. So just want to make sure that we have ourselves covered.
And then, do you have any idea when the public hearing is going to occur?
Early January. Thank you.
January 6th?
Yep.
Now, he says Arrowhead and Fort Rose, that where the original Fleet Farm was gonna go, that corner?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
Also, your fifth paragraph down under whereas. Second line, it says, permit that all traffic. Maybe you change that, get rid of.
Oh, yep,
that
all of the traffic. Yep.
All of the all should get out of there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. This is a resolution, so it takes an offer, motion, and a second.
No offer.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Offer, motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Let's move on to item D, and that's a resolution approving the 2022 wage factor adjustment.
This was tabled at our last meeting due to the fact that the authorized permanent positions schedule was not originally attached. That said, this is the resolution to enact the 2% wage adjustment or cost of living adjustment that was budgeted for non-represented employees. So this resolution is brought back with the attached personnel schedule.
Question?
I believe I heard
Jesse, thanks for clarifying the.
Oh.
The police chief.
Yes.
Or the assistant chief, which is listed as a captain.
Yes, thank you, Trustee Delort. Appreciate the reminder. A question was asked by Trustee Delort that our salary structure, our classification structure does have some old titles in it yet because it was last updated at the start of last year. That being said, I know we would be handling it twice But with the reclassifications and reorganizations that are under consideration at this point, the follow-up item to this being the wage adjustment factor, or excuse me, the wage structure change. Those titles, we would look to get that all cleaned up as a follow-up action. But that said, this particular resolution is for the wage adjustment factor, being that cost of living adjustment that has been budgeted.
This resolution, it's an offer motion and a second.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't quite understand what's where the personnel schedule as presented be approved. Are we asking that to be part of this resolution, or is that a misspell?
Nope, that is actually a part of the resolution, because as you recall, during the budget deliberations, there were questions about the personnel schedule that was included with the budget book. Therefore, we made sure to clean up and have that personnel schedule accurate. And the compromise at the time of the budget deliberations was to attach it to the wage adjustment factor resolution. As part of the budget, correct. It would actually be approved as an attachment to this resolution. That was kind of how it came to be as a compromise. Yep.
Jesse, this does not include merit raises that are given to
No, this is
elected employees. Tell the
Correct.
board how that works.
merit is based upon performance evaluations.
Okay.
And performance evaluations are carried out by supervisors at the end of the year, early in the following year, whereby you look at the job duties completed, goals being met, what have you, any extra effort being taken into account, and they are graded out based upon their job performance. And that merit pay is actually a percentage of the cost of living percentage. So if there's a cost of living percentage of 2%, a merit score of X would warrant an additional percentage of that above and beyond that COLA. So that's kind of the 10,000 foot look at our performance system, our merit
So
system.
we have money in the budget for.
Yes, we do.
How much for merit raises?
I would have to look back at what the budget was. That was an allocation in the, that is an allocation within the, I believe, the unclassified account, because we transfer those dollars into the specific departments after the COLA is applied and after the merit is applied. But yes, it is accounted for, not only the COLA, but also merit in the 2022 adopted budget.
Okay, and also this 2%, does that include all non-union employees? So like.
Yes,
Everybody, that's not, pretty much everybody other than the police department.
all regular full-time and part-time employees.
Department heads, the whole shit.
Yes, correct.
This
Yep,
would also include you.
yes. Yep,
So-
and then there's a merit above and beyond based upon my,
So I got to thinking, like major companies,
Mhm,
they have like a CEO or a COO.
sure.
Equivalent position.
Oh,
to
sure,
yours.
sure, kind of a chief
They
administrative
report
officer.
to a board of directors.
Correct.
Who assign a
Mhm.
wage adjustment.
Yep,
That board of directors is responsible to shareholders,
Mhm,
which would be like citizens for us.
sure, taxpayers, if you will, certainly.
But the CEO or CO, they don't give themselves a raise.
I am considered a non-represented employee with the Village of Grafton. If the board would like to change that policy or practice,
Yeah.
the village board could have a discussion about that, absolutely.
The school district, the superintendent doesn't give himself a raise. The
I-
school board does.
I can't speak to the school district's practices.
So I think this is something we should look at, as far as just the administrator being, giving himself a raise. I don't think. that's-
The village board does have to sign off on that PCN, our payroll change notice, our paperwork. The village, that is part of the discussion, and the village president signs off on that. I do not sign off on any adjustment for myself. I do not give myself a raise.
So that's, that could be an item for future discussion, but it's not on the agenda tonight as a discussion item, more an action item. Is there any other comments or questions regarding the resolution for the wage adjustment factor for non-represented regular employees.
I just have one comment. So I am in agreement with the percent cost of living adjustment, but, Jesse, again, the, personnel schedule is incorrect under the fire department. So on that third page, it's again, it doesn't give the assistant fire chief his title. Still says division chief. And I know this might be just petty, but I mean, obviously we haven't voted yet to change the position for administrative assistant. But that still says office assistant. So
I think
I know this is probably an oversight, but
I think the big thing there is to realize that it's going from 0.5 to 0.1. The title does, albeit not word for word verbatim with the brand new job description.
oh, yeah.
It absolutely,
Administrative assistant.
right. And this personnel schedule speaks to a head count or how those employees are assigned, or like you'll notice, the administrative assistant 1 in the village administrator's office is 0.75.
Right.
Ms. Sirach is a full-time employee. However, 0.25 of her time is allocated to finance.
Right.
So I think that's the real crux of the personnel schedule being the head count and how that head count is assigned. But
Right, my rub is
Understood.
just the same thing that I've been asking about, so, I do agree with the 2%.
Okay, all right, I mean, this was handed out for people to review last week, so let me get a chance to. Any other question?
Well, so I'm just confirming what you said, Jesse, is like the percentages and stuff are right, but you're just gonna clean it up and fix the titles of everything.
that's not a problem at
So
all.
we're gonna approve it as it is tonight.
Uh,
We're gonna come back and,
Otherwise, what the village board could do, trustee Luff, would be to approve the resolution as presented with a revision to the personnel schedule to note assistant fire chief.
And probably the change at some point with the administrative assistant.
Yeah,
everyone's
we'll
doing
do
it.
that.
What about utility superintendent? We have one of those? Figure 20?
That is now our assistant utility director.
Right, right, so that's not.
And that is noted, right, and that's getting into the classification structure. This personnel schedule does note assistant utility director. But trustee Harbeck was correct in that the personnel schedule attached to the resolution for the wage adjustment factor, the COLA, should note assistant fire chief, which it does not. So that being said, I think the most appropriate action here would be adoption of the resolution with the correction to the title within the personnel schedule.
We have a concern if we add updating the title of the administrative.
Inspection department,
Mhm.
if they had administrative secretary,
Assistant.
Where are you?
Drug assistant.
it's on page 2 of this.
Okay.
Maybe we should just bring that personnel schedule back again,
Yeah.
because there are a couple
Sure.
of things, right? Just leave that out for next time.
If I could ask the village board, because again, we do have some of these reorganizations and reclassifications pending. If I could hold until all of that dust settles and then have the absolute final version of where we land with that and bring this back, so we don't end up having to revisit this or having something in flux, if that makes a lot of sense.
So you want to do table it?
The resolution we would need adopted by code. The village board has to adopt a resolution to implement a COLA. That said, if this is held until January, which it could be, simply it would be a matter of retroactive back to January 1. Okay.
Yeah, like we did last time.
Okay, so the resolution is to approve the 2022 wage factor adjustment factor for non-represented village employees. And we're just won't make a motion. We won't make a note of personnel schedule.
With that revision, sure.
Okay, that resolution. It's an offer motion, second.
I'll offer.
Motion.
I'll second.
Offer motion, second. Final comments. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Let's move on to item E, which is the resolution to revise the classification structure for the non-representative
Yes.
engaged in place for 2022.
So the classification structure is the document that sets forth the various pay grades, minimum, midpoint, maximum for the different job positions here within the village. Excuse me. That said, attached to the report this evening is the current classification structure, which was adopted in February of 21. This followed a comprehensive classification and compensation study whereby there were some salary adjustments recommended, but also a shift in the structure based upon market conditions of what we had found through our research. So as a follow-up to that, and to kind of move away from history, whereby historic practices up until 2019, up until 2020, actually, if there was a 2% COLA, the wage structure matched that. So the wage structure or the classification structure, excuse me. So all of those minimum, midpoint, maximum numbers would move by 2% as well. That was a historical practice. That said, concerns were raised about, okay, this, instead of just arbitrarily changing that classification structure, it should be tied to something tangible. Market research, consumer price index, something tangible instead of just saying it should match the cost of living adjustment. That said, staff did some homework here. We did look at nearby communities, but also I put out on the city manager's message board to get a statewide poll, and the results are listed there, whereby all of our neighbors except for the city of Cedarburg are increasing their pay structure. And it's important to note, this is the structure itself. These are not individual wages. It is that what we just discussed, that wage adjustment factor or cost of living adjustment or merit, that impacts individual wages. This is simply a table showing what the minimum and maximum rate of pay would be for a given position. This does not, if this table is changed, it does not impact individual salaries or hourly rates. That said, the staff is back before the village board with an update to the classification structure proposed based upon market data showing our neighbors are looking to uptick their salary structures. Statewide, we're seeing a sampling of upticks in salary structures. You'll note the town of Westport out in Dade County, that's a pretty significant shift. They were very straightforward in saying they've got to catch up because of market conditions out in their location. So that is a bit of an outlier, and I wanted to speak to that specifically because that is a significant outlier from those other adjustments to salary structures that we are seeing. So the goal here this evening would be to adjust the salary structure, those minimum figures, maximum figures, and everything in between by 2%. Step two would be coming back and cleaning up the titles within that structure. The reason for that is we would like to have this structure in place, the new minimums, the new midpoints, what have you, in place on January 1 as we have recruitments ongoing. And if that can help us be that much more competitive, that is part of the reasoning behind looking to kind of break apart this project, being we update the ranges, but then yes, staff also recognizes that we have to come back and update some titles that are included in this chart. Also too, we've got some of those pending reorganizations. And so that said, based upon market research, based upon a consumer price index that came in at about 3%, we are asking with a resolution to adjust the classification structure for non-represented employees by 2%. And the comparisons there were provided, being the existing.
I'm okay with that, but
It's listed as a February 2021. That's our current structure. But then the updated one, by shifting it 2%, what that would look like with the January 2022 date
yeah,
listed on the top.
but I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Unless I'm missing- oh,
Yeah, I
here it
think
is.
it-
All right,
So that is what is brought forward for the board's consideration this evening.
questions on that item?
So why was Cedarburg not listed?
Cedarburg is not changing their pay structure. They're not adjusting it for 2022.
So this is what they're gonna do going forward. these times.
Yes, correct. For 2022, Saukville is taking their salary structure from here, moving it 3%.
So do you know what they did last year?
I did not ask what their historical changes were. Nope.
0. Talk about- Yeah.
I know Saukville did freeze for a bit
Yes.
because of some union negotiations and how that relayed across the board and COVID expenditure restraint concerns. So
Again, we have the new classification structure in January 2022.
Mhm.
Is that gonna be cleaned up because that's also not accurate?
yes, as I discussed, I'd like to split this into two portions. We recognize the fact that there are some positions that need to be cleaned up, but also we've got existing reorganizations pending or reclassifications pending. But the reason for approaching it in two facets would be to get the pay grades adjusted for some of the current recruitments to help us with that competitiveness, considering our neighbors are adjusting and again, looking to take step one, and then with the dust settling, with the changes that are proposed this evening, we would look to get all of the titles and whatnot cleaned up, whether it be administrative assistant versus administrative secretary, assistant chief, what have you. Yep.
Other questions? Okay.
Yeah, just, Jesse, just to really clarify for an old man.
No worries.
So I'm pay grade 9 office assistant at the fire department. I know that's gonna change. So essentially what's going to happen, I'm midpoint at $20 an hour. And so what's going to happen is that now the midpoint is going to approximately 2041, which would be a 2%. If I'm at midpoint now, I'm 2% below midpoint. So my wage is not going to go up. All that's happening is that pay scales are increasing 2% at any level.
Correct. This is just a change to the scales. This is not a change to individual employee wage rates. Correct. Yep. Yep. No problem.
Other questions?
That's another typo.
Oh,
All right, this is a resolution, please offer motion second.
I'll offer.
Motion.
Second, offer motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Nay, just on the topic of the personnel schedule being.
Yeah.
Okay.
That resolution passes. Move on to item F, approve the appointment of village draft and elections inspectors for the 2022-2023 term.
by statutes, the clerk's office is required to appoint election inspectors for 2-year terms. That being said, a list was generated by Clerk Olson and presented this evening for village board approval.
Any motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion in a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes. Move on to item G for the finance committee. Everyone is a motion to recommend the village board approves the proposed utility org chart, the office assistant utility operator, advanced utility operator job descriptions, the incentive-based pay system of 25 cents per hour for each certification obtained in 2021 be approved. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second, final comments on that item. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 2 is a motion to recommend the village board approve the intergovernmental agreement for fire department oversight, and fire inspection and support with Saco, conditioned upon the acceptance by Saco village board be approved.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
If I may, very quickly before the action, I did, there was a discussion point on page 3, making sure that because it is a bi-weekly amount, that those figures were updated to show what that bi-weekly amount is. That was discussed at finance. So that is why the updated document is attached to the report of finance this evening. So that was updated to be accurate, being a bi-weekly compensation, what that bi-weekly rate is. So
Motion is second. Final comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Move on to item 5, reclassification of the part-time fire department office assistant to full-time administrative assistant will be effective in the 1st, 2022.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Comments on that item?
Couple of comments. At the necessary pay grade of, I think it was a 12. I think.
yes, I believe so. Yep.
Want to make sure she gets moved from where you have her now.
Yes, she will go to Administrative Assistant 1, Fire Department. So that position is being created and will be listed in pay grade 12 along with the other Administrative Assistant ones. Yep.
I'm fine.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Let's move on to item H, report of the Board of Public Works. Item 1 is the motion to pay 50% of the project cost not to exceed $10,980 for driveway repairs at 1470 Falls Road, and condition on legal approval on the owner signing release.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions on this? Finally putting a long-standing issue to bed.
As Mike is fully informed and aware, our attorney.
Yes.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 2 is the ordinance amending section 12.0808C sewer use and sewer service charges basis for sewer service charges of the municipal code as amended be adopted. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second. Comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 3 is a motion to approve change order 3 to include item roof pump piping credits, galvanized wood conduit change credit, 95 waterproofing credit for a total credit to the Headworks project of $18,462.82 be approved.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion is second, and I know we have some open items on this one. Amber, do you want to
Yeah,
give some background on this?
add a
one?
little background to this. So this change order, the original change order 3 had, I believe, 5 items in it. 3 of which were a credit to the village that we're talking about, and 2 of which were a cost to the village. It's been discussed at 3 different Board of Public Works meetings leading up to this. And I just wanted to add a little bit more insight to this discussion, as there's quite a bit to it. So the board approved the Headworks project for the wastewater treatment plant originally back at the beginning of 2020 with a 5% contingency. So staff moved forward with small change orders that were within that 5% contingency to move the project and continue the project moving forward. Out of an $8.5 million project, 5% contingency is approximately $426,000. So right now we are looking at change orders in the range of about $22,000, which is about 0.3%. So we're nowhere near, as we're getting to close out the project, we are nowhere near that 5% contingency. All of these changes, including the 2 costs, which were some additional trusses and an additional upsize of a beam, were all work that was incorporated into the project that is part of the current building that we're taking ownership of. We have accepted the materials, accepted the work, and village staff actually confirmed today for sure with our previous facilities director, Larry Roy, that he was part of all the discussions on the added trusses and the added beam. Even Tim was part of the discussions, our past superintendent. some of these items were added way back in fall of 2020. So these items were incorporated into the project quite a long time ago, at least a year ago, and were gone over at a staff level and approved at a staff level. We did take possession of those items. So would ask that the board consider approving change order 3 as it was originally presented with both the credits and the costs. I have also talked to both the contractor CD Smith and the design engineer MSA, and I do have reason to believe that they will not sign off on a change order that only includes the credits, because then you're not paying them for work that they have purchased and work that they have installed into our project. So it very much could lead to, further issues down the line if we do not approve the entire change order. And the change order with both the costs and the credits is still a total credit of almost $7,000 to the village. So if we're accepting the whole thing in general, it is still an overall credit at the end of the day.
So that information would have been good to know before tonight, because there are 2 other people on Public Works that voted to not accept those 2 items. So I feel a little torn about now taking their opinion away. I understand it would have been nice to get that information before. So there's enough other situations where we skip the committee level and come to the board. So I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I in the end, I will agree with that, but to move over those other people on the committee, I don't agree with that.
Because it's not new information, but just after seeing the
Right,
discussion last week.
But
it's a
we could have
different
gotten
way.
that information before tonight.
The item is, I mean, we can send it back, but I think, based on what is being presented now, again, let me make sure I understand. MSA was not, even though they were a design, they don't build the final actual construction plans, right?
I mean, MSA did the design. These
But they
2
didn't-
items that are in contention were further designed by the manufacturers.
Right, so
who
they-
recommended upgrades.
They weren't the group that was involved in the final construction build.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And CD Smith, who was the contractor, was directed by MSA under our supervision to go forward with purchasing these items and installing these items. And they're really the ones that have the costs.
Okay, and at staff level, we accepted the changes. And they
Yes.
performed the changes. And we just kept it building.
Correct. Kept it moving. Yep.
Okay,
I did vote against this at Public Works, but I think with the information that's coming forward, that this discussion, and we didn't have this information at Public Works, that Mr. Roy and Mr. Yenning did have discussions with us that did approve the changes. I think MSA coming forward and offering us $2,500 as kind of a, I wouldn't say it's a peace offering, but I think that they're going out of their way to be able to offer us something where we would have had nothing before if we didn't go back to them. So I would vote for approval on
does
this.
anybody have any issues taking the initial change order 3 as being presented?
I don't have any issues. I think trustee DeLord mentioned, this is new information, and we're obligated to make
Yeah.
pay, and we did get extra value based upon the decision of staff at that time. It should be paid, and I'm in favor of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Wasn't this a 5-to-1 vote?
Can we just so I can just make it official, with the persons that make the motion a second, are you okay with pulling that motion in second at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, we have nothing on the table.
I'm sorry.
It was a 4-to-1 vote.
I mean, it was
Works.
pretty convincing that the committee was not on board with this. You got Les and Pat Murray not voting against it, and we're just, doesn't matter, I guess.
Well, and I think here too is follow-up discussions as we informed MSA and the contractor of what that recommendation was coming out of Board of Public Works. They immediately defaulted to, this is going to cause much more trouble than what the change order as a whole adopting, trying to break it apart. They were very upfront in the follow-up conversations following the Board of Public Works recommendation. They were very upfront saying, we're not signing this. So all due respect to the Board of Public Works action, I understand where they're coming from when taking that action. But we're here to talk to you, the policymakers, that recommendation, albeit a very strong one, we have gotten feedback since that time from both MSA and the contractor that they will not accept it by breaking it apart like this into credits and charges.
Well, I think the bigger picture is the board, this board has a much clearer picture of the activities and the actions that happen. That information just wasn't available at the Board of Public Works. I am sure that if the conversation that happened here tonight would have happened at the Board of Public Works, that would have came through the same. We agreed to it, we accepted it, the work was done. We have to pay for it. And the thing about it is, we're not talking huge sums of money here. We're talking a couple $1,000. At the end of the day, we still are getting a credit to the tune of $7,000 or something like that. Lisa?
So Amber, did we talk about that specific item back in 2020 at Public Works?
We did it.
Was that brought up? So
We
that
did
wasn't
it.
even
So
brought up.
the trust would have been the one that came up, I think, in October of 2020.
Right.
And to keep the project moving forward, staff accepted it.
Right.
So we obviously got costs for the material. It took a while before the building was ready to install that truss, and we had labor costs to go with it.
Okay.
So I believe it was spring of 21 before we had the full costs and originally brought the change order to Board of Public Works. And obviously have been talking about it since then.
So do you think, after the meeting tonight, that you could send an email out to all the members on Public Works
Sure.
to update them so the other two people know what happened and know why we're voting the way we are?
Yeah, entertain a motion to accept change order 3 as originally presented.
I'll move to approve.
Motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Let's move on to item 4, is a resolution accepting and dedicating sanitary sewer, water main, and storm sewer, curb, gutter, sidewalk, roadway for the final plat of River Bend Meadows subdivision. Be approved, be adopted. That's a resolution.
I'll offer. Motion.
Second.
Offer motion second. It's gonna be interesting to see what the minutes read next. How many people offer and,
Nobody will
Take
know.
whoever I hear first.
Nobody will know what they did.
all right, I think this is pretty straightforward, but anybody have any questions for Jessica? I'm sorry, Brandon. Sorry. Anyway.
I know 0 things about streets and roads.
Okay, offer motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the lease purchase agreement and escrow agreement be adopted.
I'll offer.
Street sweeper.
Street sweeper, yes.
Street sweeper, okay. So we have an offer motion and
Second.
a second. Any issues on this item?
Yeah, does it say anywhere in here what it's even for?
This would be for the
It just
street
says
sweeper.
equipment.
This will be attached to the application that does set forth what all of the equipment is. But yes, this is for the sweeper within the Public Works Department.
Could we add that? I mean, it doesn't, it's
Sure.
very vague.
Right, we just kind of copied the template the Leasing 2 Incorporated sent us. We utilize their template, and I think it is a good point to specify the equipment. Yep.
If I could ask the board to make any motion contingent upon final review by my office, by the village attorney of the agreement. I just got the agreement late last week and I wanted to just go through it with staff.
Okay. Do you have the offer motion second in the counter for?
Yes.
People, let me know is okay with that amendment. Yes. Pending legal, final legal, okay. So we have that resolution, final questions, and then adding the specific equipment. Okay. Offer motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Let's move on to item 9, report of the Public Safety Committee. We will entertain a motion for item 1 to be tabled back to Public Safety Committee for further discussion.
Do you want to talk about why?
It's contractually, we are not allowed to put exercise equipment in the capital account or charge capital
Correct.
for exercise equipment per agreement with the town. So actual funding for this mechanism will have to be discussed at committee level. So I'll entertain a motion to table.
I'll make a motion table.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes, and we have another item, and that is the motion to approve the construction of a crosswalk including all proper markings and signage in the 1300 block of 17th Avenue be approved.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion is second, and questions on that item? Hearing none, all in favor?
There was a question over here.
I do have a question. So when we do this construction, we're going to be putting in handicap ramps for, so there can be
Right,
access.
we'll have to redo a handicap ramp on the east side of the road near the park, and we'll have to add a new handicap ramp on the west side of the road. I know this has been discussed a number of times at public safety. I just wanted to add, looking at this and some of the recommendations that have come from staff on why it may not be a safe choice to add a crosswalk there, is it is a mid-block crossing, which is not somewhere that traffic is typically looking for having a pedestrian crosswalk. It is also kind of at the low point of the hill. And traffic is coming fairly fast through there. It's also fairly close to the existing crosswalk at Bridge Street, and having those crosswalks that close to each other is not typically recommended as a safe place to cross the street. So I just want to make sure as you guys are moving forward and making this decision tonight that you understand once we put it in, if there are any safety issues with people crossing there, it will be the village's liability once we are telling people to cross at that point.
So one of the things we talked about at Public Works is the information that I actually got from Jessica from the Department of Transportation. And one of the things it does say is that they always recommend a crosswalk when there's a park. And they do not discriminate for mid-block. So that was the information that I was given. And we have had so many issues down there. We put in that whole new play area in the park, and there's no safe place for them to cross. And the only reason the crosswalk is up on Bridge Street is because there's a school there. So it was talked about at length.
Yeah, thank you.
I just want to know too that the information I provided to trustee Hardwick was from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
Mhm.
And it did say though that it's not appropriate in all situations.
Right.
So, and I have to agree with Director Thomas that I don't feel in this situation that it is a safe crossing. It's simply a matter of a few, not even 100 feet to go down to a safe intersection that's already there that would not increase the costs for the village at all.
Okay,
I think with the situation, the main purpose of considering this is all the apartments there and the number of children that are in those apartments that are right across the street. I talked to 14 families last Sunday. Every family agreed that they would like a crosswalk there.
And at the end of the day, we appreciate the village board hearing staff's professional feedback on this. At the end of the day, it is a policy decision that lies with the board. And I know this has been talked about at considerable length at the public safety level. And so we appreciate the opportunity to provide our feedback. That said, the motion is on the table.
what is,
Yeah, the idea that we want to put a flashing light there should be another indication for the drivers that they slow down.
Chief Wayland, I'm sorry, I didn't see Mrs. Wayland. Those two thoughts.
He didn't feel that it was necessary. He didn't feel it was a safety issue. I think the committee felt otherwise with multiple pictures that we've taken of kids darting across the street. So that's how he weighed in. He didn't feel it was a safety issue. I guess the committee didn't feel that.
I didn't say it's not against safety there, it's just doesn't feel that we really was going to benefit or not.
Other thoughts? Okay, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Show one nay, let's move on. Item 7, Department and Officers Reports. Just want to get us started.
Certainly. On December 17th, in a 2-1 decision, a 6th Circuit Court of Appeals allowed OSHA's required vaccination rule for COVID-19. That said, OSHA said it will delay enforcement until January of 2022. Now come the wrinkles. This rule, as it is written, applies to private employers. We are a public entity, being the Village of Grafton. The other significant wrinkle is the fact that the village does not follow OSHA. Municipalities here in Wisconsin do not follow OSHA. We actually follow the State Department of Safety and Professional Services work rules. Now, the vast majority of the time, DSPS work rules mirror OSHA, but they are not all the time exactly the same. That and there is no specific definition of employee, whether that's full-time, part-time, seasonal, paid on call. So long story short, as an employer, we will continue to monitor this situation to see if DSPS adopts that OSHA rule. If there's any clarification as to if it is private employers or does that cross over to public employers as well. And then again, that definition of employee. So the long and short is we will be working to stay up to date on this and keep you as policymakers informed, but also our workforce informed, as there is a significant amount of concern about dictating vaccinations. And so just wanted to inform the board of that recent court action. I do anticipate additional challenges, so I don't see it coming to this level anytime soon. The preliminary audit was conducted over the last week with no concerns being raised. This is the initial informational gathering and inquiry portion of the village's annual audit process. Grafton, as an organization, we have an excellent reputation for not only being well prepared for audits, but also having high quality bookkeeping standards to facilitate the audits. The auditors will be back in-house to complete their work in the last week of February. We are having special brush pickups throughout the village following the recent windstorm. So Public Works is busy with that. Happy to report on a much lighter note, our Elf on a Shelf social media campaign has been a hit. People are just having a blast, not only internally from the department side of things, but also resident feedback and engagement. It's been a fantastic tool just to get some basic information out there about, hey, what does our DPW fleet look like? What does it look like when you're standing on top of a water tower? What are some of the functions the utility carries out? It's been a really neat and creative way to get some very general information out there, and it's been very well received. So really happy about that. Last, I would like to close with a note of thank you to the village board. Another year of hard work and meetings, appreciate that. And on behalf of staff, I want to wish you all a very happy holiday season with a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. That is all I have for a report this evening.
Okay, any questions for Jesse or staff?
Remember, I like to get first and thank DPW for all the help they've given me as well as the chamber, keeping the trees up.
Yes,
Oh,
always
Really
has to be a windy
appreciate that.
season.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Amy?
Back to the COVID,
Mhm.
situation, do you have an idea of percentages of how many of our employees are vaccinated?
We do, as an employer, we have the right, and this is court tested, to ask a general yes or no question of employees. And right now, I believe we are sitting on, we are over 50%. We do have a majority. I don't know how big of a majority, but majority of our workforce is vaccinated. But there are some folks that have chosen not to. And that's okay. That's their choice. So.
Amber, can you just another thank you for the group for the work after the windstorm? There's quite a few trees that were down, and I'm sure the groups were out. So,
Just a couple days to clean everything up.
and
Yes.
say thank you. Other comments? Yes, Jim?
Jesse, you have some sort of survey that you want to get to us, internal survey that you.
Yep, I'm finishing that write-up. I'd like the department heads to take a look at the associated action plan. It's,
Well, the survey's not done.
oh, the survey's all done and we have the results tabulated. And the department heads have met and discussed what we can do as far as an action plan to address that employee feedback. It was an internal survey conducted as a management tool to get feedback from our workforce because there are some very general broad comments out there, and really wanted to get to the heart of how folks were feeling about working here in Grafton. That said, met with department heads working on an action plan to address that feedback that we received, and all of that information I will place in the trustees mailbox for your information. Absolutely.
When could we expect that, do you think?
Early in the new year.
I just wanted to welcome Chad, who's here.
Oh.
You want to introduce him?
Yes, sorry, the quiet guy in the back. I'd like to introduce our new Park and Recreation Director, Chad Hoyer.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for bringing me on board. I'm anxious and happy to serve you guys. And hopefully we can bring some stability back to the department that's been a little bit of a roller coaster the last couple of years with John's retirement and then Megan's sudden departure. Hopefully I can stabilize the ship and we can begin work after the new year. I'm slowly getting acclimated to the job and learning all the policies and procedures that you guys have here in Grafton. Again, I wish you guys a happy holiday season as well.
Thank you. Again, welcome aboard.
Welcome.
All right. Okay, let's move on to item 8.
One
license-
other.
Oh, yes, Amber.
It will be on January 3rd. It will be our DPW administrative assistant, Melissa Duffy's last day of full-time employment with the village. So we will have cake and refreshments from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. on January 3rd. If anyone would like to stop by and wish her well.
What's that? Okay.
Monday.
All right. Now let's move on to licenses. We have one individual, the place of employment is listed. Motion for approval.
I make the motion to approve.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? On item 9, entertain motion for approval of village expenditures, $525,589.54.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion second, I saw the back and forth. Comments and questions, any further comments on the bills? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Entertain a motion to convene the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 1951G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to the litigation in which it is or likely to become involved, in this case, waste management settlement.
I'll make the motion.
Motion a second, we'll call vote.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session. How long do you expect to be in closed session?
About 10 to 15 minutes.
After which we'll have an action item.
Yep.
Chad, welcome. I'm gonna stop see you soon.
I'll make a motion to go back to open.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Session. To approve payment of $307,178.90 for services provided through November 30th, 2021, with the understanding the village is not waiving any existing rights under the existing contract.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second, all in
I'll-
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
I'll be commemorating that in a formal agreement. So thank you very much.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion in a second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Merry Christmas, happy holidays.